Namaste. We are all familiar with yoga, isn't it? Especially people who have been living in the past 2 decades. I would say we have started realizing or recognizing yoga as an important tool to balance our whole self. And more so, I would say, in the past few years, ever since Yoga Day, the International Yoga Day is being organized and it is celebrated across the globe. We do see yoga studios or yoga workshops or yoga places, even the therapy centers in almost every small town in India these days, I would say. So it has become, the practice of yoga has become so prevalent. But how did it emerge and where have we reached now is what I am going to discuss. I am just going to give you a very small introduction to this topic because it's a vast topic. It's like an ocean, and what I am going to speak is just like a part of a drop. It is that minuscule, I would say. So, yoga, the meaning of the word yoga is itself balancing or union, and this union is of the mind, body and spirit, or we also call it the union of oneself with the universal self, our physical self with the nature or with the universe. And in Sanskrit we call it the union of the Jivatma with the Paramatma. So, it is just not a physical exercise form, it has much more depth to it, and we need to understand it totally to be able to get the entire benefit of yoga or the benefit of yoga in its entirety. And when we look at the definition of yoga, that itself says so, because yoga, the meaning or the definition of yoga says that yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, this is in Sanskrit, and it means the cessation of one's mental thought processes is what, or the stillness or the balance that we bring to the state of mind is what is yoga. So, mind is what is given more importance, and to achieve that state, of course, we use various modalities. It could be the asanas, pranayamas and so on. How it emerged, the yoga, it is a very old tradition, philosophy, practice, culture, I would say, and this is 5000 years old. So, Ayurveda is 5000 years old. I would say yoga is even more former to it. And those days, the sages or the saints went into seclusion. They had to give up their worldly life to get into the practice of yoga, and it was they who formulated this practice of yoga. So, the most sought after place, we all know, even now when we speak of yoga in the spiritual sense, we connect it to Himalayas. So, it was these deep forests or the secluded places away from mankind which was chosen to practice chosen for the practice of yoga, and disciples followed the gurus. So, it was not like a school or and proper organization or a cult, but whoever wanted to practice yoga or wanted to get into that field used to simply follow the teachings of the guru, used to follow him and then learn yoga. This is how it was in the past. But over the period of time, it has evolved a lot. We got scriptures on that thanks to sage Patanjali, who has put it down as postulates, and we practice that these days. Now, what he put up was the Ashtanga Yoga. Now, Ashtanga Yoga means the eightfold method of yoga. So, here we start with the basic, that is we culture the body, then the prana or the vital sheath or the sheath of vital energy, what we call, and then the mind, the intellect, and that is how we it is postulated, that is how it is formatted. And if we practice it in this sense, that is when we get the holistic benefit of yoga or the actual benefit of yoga. And these days what we see, it is much more advanced. We make use of yoga for each and every disease condition. It is evolved into a therapeutic tool. So, we can manage diseases, we can control the formation of diseases, we can even cure certain diseases only through yoga therapy. So, that is where we have reached now, and there is lot of research which has been undertaken to prove its medical benefits, to prove its effect on each and every system in the body. So, there are certain organizations which are completely dedicated for this purpose. So, that is where we are right now in the field of yoga. Now, how do we know whom to follow or who should be our teacher? Now, I am not going to tell you whom you should actually approach, but then let me tell you the various categories of teachers. Some of them have learnt it from guru or a proper school. They are not certified or so, but since they have practiced it for many years, or that is what they think so, they try to teach the people who approach them. So, that is one category of teachers. The other category is where they have a certificate. There is an instructor's course or instructor's training which is done, and they are certified to instruct people on yoga. So, they can instruct, they can tell you what to do, how to do. The technical aspect of yoga could be taught to you. The third category would be the yoga therapists. So, the therapists are like nurses. So, they know how to do it in a medical way. They know which is the muscle which is getting pulled or so on, and so they will be able to instruct you that way medically, more like from the physiotherapy point of view, I would say, and that is what is the yoga therapy. Now, the yoga therapist is also course, is also an certificate course. And then there are doctors who are qualified to prescribe yoga for certain conditions. Now, it is ideally a yoga doctor or a graduate in yoga. I would say, when I say a yoga doctor, it is always the naturopathy and yogic sciences which offers the degree of yoga to the medical practitioner, and or an MD in yoga. Of course, he is one step ahead, and it is them who have to ideally prescribe the yoga therapy for you. As a doctor would prescribe the medications, it is this doctor who has to tell you what to do, because it is not only for one condition. Like if you approach a doctor for diabetes, he would not look only at diabetes, he would look at the various other aspects of your life, of your health, as well as the disease condition, and guide you accordingly. So, that is where the expertise lies, and once it is prescribed, a yoga therapist can take over and he can just teach you to do this in the right way. So, these are the various categories of teachers, and it is for you to choose whom you want to approach. Now, how when to do yoga is the next question. Generally people say, oh, yoga, I do not have time in the early mornings, you know, I am busy, I have to get up and start working to be able to go to office and school or whatever. So, I do not have that time for yoga in the morning. Now, ideally, yes, any exercise form for that matter, I would say, and particularly yoga can be, should be done early in the morning. That is the most ideal time. But there is nothing which stops you from practicing it sometime during the day. Definitely not between 12 to 3 in the afternoon. That is not the time for practice of yoga, but before 12 or after 3:30 in the evening, it could be done. Only point that you need to bear in mind is to give a proper gap between your food intake and the timing of yoga. Yoga should never be done on an full stomach. The stomach should be empty. So, that means ideally 2.5 to 3 hours after the intake of a meal. a proper full meal is what I mean here. Yoga could be practiced, but if you are taking some drinks, like say you come back from office and have a glass of juice and then proceed for yoga, then even 20 to 30 minutes of gap should be fine. So this is when you have to practice yoga. And whether yoga can be practiced during acute conditions, no, like when you have a fever, running fever, or a cold or body ache, then better to refrain from yoga. Anyway, this will be instructed by the doctor whom you approach, or the therapist will also be able to tell you this. And how is exercise different from yoga, or yoga different from exercise? Now, exercises can build your muscles, it can keep your bones and joints in a good condition, it can keep your cardiac activity in a proper pace. All these can be attained through the exercises, whereas yoga is much more deeper. One could be physically fit. You can look at a person and say that he is physically fit, but that does not mean that he is holistically fit. That does not mean that he is fit overall. His mind, his prana, the vital energy, his breathing should all be good, or it should be in a state of balance to claim that one is healthy. And to achieve this state of health, yoga is the best tool. So, as I mentioned earlier, yoga, the physical asanas or the postures is what caters to the body, the physical self, and one step further is to culture the prana, or to balance the prana or the vital energy, and for that pranayama is important. And if you have to calm down your mind or focus your mind and help your mind stay in a state of balance without any kind of emotional upheavals, you need to practice the other techniques like pratyahara or dharana. That is, to put it in the simple sense, it is the meditation or the concentration techniques that you need to do. You need relaxation to de-stress your body. There are relaxation techniques like shavasana. You would have heard of shavasana, yoga nidra, the deep relaxation techniques. These need to be followed. And if you need to improve the effectiveness of the pranayama, then you need to practice bandhas and mudras with that. So it is a very, very deep science, as I told you earlier. So, and a proper ideal teacher will take you through all of these step by step, and that is when you can start enjoying the practice of yoga and reap the benefits of yoga. So, I guess with this you are able to understand what yoga is about in its gist of what yoga is about. And I would definitely suggest that each of you take up yoga as a daily practice and start practicing it religiously, and see for yourself what the difference it makes to your mind and to your body and to your whole self and to people surrounding you, because it will reflect in your behavior, in your attitude, in your social, when I say behavior, your social behavior and your attitude, and they would be able to appreciate it too apart from yourself. So, thank you, all the best, take care and bye.